Hi, and welcome to today's video where we will be talking about how to handle project delays. Now, as you know, as project managers, we all have project delays. It's the reality of being a project manager, and there's no way of getting around that. There's nothing goes to plan because we are reliant on people, time, and third parties to do everything. Now, if we weren't relying on them, we can do it all ourselves. We potentially may get it on time, but again, we can't do everything ourselves. So handling project delays is a real key role within project management. And, you know, it's really an important part of being a project manager, how you manage delays and how you communicate that across. So in today's video, what I'm going to really cover is how, understanding what project delay is, a brief overview on that one. How you can be proactive about delay management, what you can do, some strategies for handling project delays, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail around about communication and stakeholder management, which is really, really key when there's project delays around. So without delay, let's crack on. So understanding project delay. So what constitutes a project delay within the environment? So project delay is basically where you are deviating from the agreed timeline that was set out to your stakeholders, either due to cost, resource, scope reduction, whatever it may be, and external factors that might affect you. That is will impact the timeline of what you've initially agreed. Now that baseline is again just a baseline to work towards, and I would never say it's set in stone because you cannot foresee everything, and there are always changes within projects. So the impact of project delays is basically that there will be some of your objectives. There could be timeline changes, your budget, your stakeholders have to satisfaction gets impacted, all those things. But again, there are impacts on more material impacts. It's taken longer to them to deliver. You are requiring more resource. There is all those things that come into that. There are more. You are not managing the scope correctly. If those scopes are your scope creep and you are constantly changing things, there are that will forever introduce change to your project, which then you cannot manage, which will introduce risks, which then automatically introduce delay. So those are all the key areas. There are many more variables that impact the project, which really could impact how you progress. So I've defined the projects, the impact of the project delay. Now, how do we look at proactive delay management? Now, realistically, how do you proactively stay on top of stuff and try to manage any delay that comes into your project? Because once it's there, you're going to have to deal with it. So firstly is identifying and assessing the delay. So once you've identified, again, do your weekly reviews with your team, understand if there's a delay. I don't know, there's a resource constraint, you haven't got a piece of kit in on time, or people have said that actually what we thought was going to take us 2 days to do the programming has now taken us 5 days because of X, Y, and Z. You need to manage those and understand that delay in detail. Understand what's going on, understand what impact it has, understand the financial cost, how much time it needed, and how does it impact other work that was provisionally planned, etc. Once you've got a full picture of and assess that delay, you then need to really look at the root cause analysis of that delay, and then making sure that you are progressing that forward and understanding how best to do that. Now, the root cause analysis really is understanding what the bare bones of what the problem is and why it's happened, and then once you understand that, you can then build that into plan. Do you change control to make sure you've applied it, bring in additional resource to maybe to try and reduce the impact, etc. And then you do what you need to do. Now, sometimes you get unforeseen circumstances which you just cannot manage, you just cannot change, and you have to accept it within project, and then you have to move on. Those things you just got to accept that you cannot manage and will always have an issue, will always impact your project, because either somebody doesn't understand something, or you've not been told about something, or the business has changed without considering the impact. And that happens a lot in many projects where the business has decided to change strategy, suddenly realize you've got this project you've spent 80% of the budget into getting it done, and it has to be done, but there has to be tweaked to meet the business requirement. That I've fallen foul to that a couple of times. and that means reevaluating the project and stopping. But again, understand the root cause means that you can reevaluate the project and then plan forward of how to make sure you get a delivery, an agreed delivery, shall I say. So next is really some strategies for handling project delays. So the first one is, you just simply adjust your project plan. Just say, okay, fine, it's going to take us 5 more days extra. We adjust the plan, and it's acceptable within budget, etc. And I wish it was that simple, but it's not. But you need to, reassess your milestones. You need to reassess your resource allocation. You need to reassess your financials. You need to understand the risk and the impact, and all those things, and get them agreed. And make sure that you are taking all that into consideration and then adjusting your plan, not simply adjusting your plan. Next one is really agile methodologies. Could you introduce any agile methodologies, so that such as you become iterative development rather than trying to look at big end-to-end project. And I think that's probably the way to do it, which means that you become more adaptive at planning and you are continuously feeding back with your team, which allows for flexibility, and you are more responsive to delays. Therefore, you are delivering smaller chunks more efficiently and getting those over the line, rather than trying to deliver the whole big event, which will have multiple delays and you need to manage. The next one is resource manager and prioritization. Now, this is really, really key. You need to manage resource, make sure they're available when they are, and set their expectations of what they need to be doing and when they need to be doing. That is really key. As soon as you do not do that and you just assume they understand what you want them to do, that is when you will fail. Never assume. Always tell them where the detail. Have one-to-ones with them. If you do, depending on the personality, build that bridge with them, build their trust, and that way you will find that you will be able to adjust your plan, because people trust you to say, yeah, I need this because of X, Y, and Z. Things have changed. And always keep your resources close, because they're the ones who will get you out of trouble. So really, that resource management is really key, making sure that you are foreseeing when you need resource, trying to plan that in, giving people as much notice as possible. It's not always the case. Sometimes you need people straight away because you found a problem, but plan for worst case scenario. And that way, at least you try to cover as many scenarios as possible. And you've got resource available to try and support. Now, if you have resource available that you have on standby, at least they're there. And that's one of the things I would recommend. Don't dismiss a resource simply because you think you can't have them. Have them on standby as a backup plan. And I've seen a lot of PMs fail on this. They don't do that, and they end up trying to rush around trying to find resource when they could have just asked, saying, please be available, be remote, or at least be on the end of a phone. Next, really is communication and stakeholder management. So as you know, you've got to make sure that your communication and your stakeholder management is really key. So the first thing is transparent communication. Really be clear, be really straight, and tell your stakeholders about delays at the right time. Be transparent. Don't try to wishy-washy. Don't try to lie through it, because unfortunately you will get caught out. And when you get caught out, your credibility drops as a PM. Say it as it is, and people of a certain professional level will appreciate honesty. You do get the odd people who don't like honesty, but the reality is you are a project manager. Your job is there to make sure that you are saying it as it is, whether people like it or they don't. You are not there to please everyone. You are there to do the job. So keep that communication transparent. Make sure it's you do it daily with your team at all levels, not just the engineers. Make sure your stakeholders are fully aware. And sometimes having that lack of communication leads to misunderstanding, assumptions, which then people are then passing that message on, which then impacts how you can deliver your project. So keep that in mind. Try to keep that message transparent and clear across throughout the project. Next one is really your stakeholder engagement expectations, setting of your stakeholders, shall I say. So managing your stakeholders is really, really key. Setting the expectations is really key, and being open and honest is one thing that's really key. Really keep it open and honest. If you've got a delay, but at least go with a plan, understand what you're doing. Your stakeholders are the ones who will steer you in the right direction and approve and help deliver your project, which is really key. So keeping them engaged, keeping them informed, being honest and open, and evaluating risks with them will help you move your project forward. it with that with by that having that engagement, when you hit a problem and you've got issues, you can discuss that. Your stakeholders will make sure that they are helping you problem solve, and you can make decisions with more information, more precisely, and more quickly, which is really key when you're trying to drive a project forward. So in summary, remember, don't forget the projects always will have delays. We just have to accept that. It's not something that we can always root out. We try to minimize them as best as possible. Make sure you are handling them proactively, identifying, assessing those delays, making sure understanding the root cause so that you can make a clear decision about how to move things forward. And then, some strategies, don't forget, adjust your project plan. You can do that. You don't necessarily have to speak to everybody. Try introducing some agile methods which make things more flexible, smaller chunk deliveries, which you more efficient, more simpler to manage, and get you over the line. Keep your resources on side. Make sure you are prioritizing your resource and keeping them informed and knowing when you need them and when to down tools, etc. And finally, communication. Keep that communication channel open, honest, and to the point. And when you hit challenges, you will find that they will come and help you. That concludes the video. So thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful. I hope to see you next time.